Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. So yesterday I posted a new episode of the Freelance Friday podcast with my friend Krista Graham of Krista Graham Weddings and Events, and she told us a lot about everything that goes into planning a wedding and working in the industry. It was a really cool episode. So I shared it on my Instagram story, and I figured on Freelance Fridays, I should start opening up my Instagram stories to questions about the episodes or just about freelancing, social media in general. So that's what I did, and I was planning on doing the little Instagram story answers, and there were just way too many and way too detailed questions that I thought needed to be addressed in a video. So that's what we're doing today. It's time for another social media Q&A. Buckle yourselves in. Let's get started. Okay, first question. Oh gosh, hello. First question, how do you find clients and how do you outsource work? I feel like I've talked about the clients question 10 zillion times. I will link some videos down below where I talk about it and podcasts and resources and stuff like that. But you know, I think one thing that I haven't talked about too much is just like talk to people. Just tell people what you do. Your social networks and like the people who follow you just as a person, you know, on your personal Facebook, your personal LinkedIn, your personal Twitter, whatever, they generally care about you. Like that's where they're following you, whether it's a former coworker, you know, a former boss, a family member, they genuinely care about you. And I actually just posted something on my Twitter the other day, which is really funny. My mom, she like kept asking me questions about like what I do and like basically trying to like get me work and get people to subscribe to my channel. And it was the cutest thing. And like just opening up to your family, your friends, people in your lives is amazing. And I never really thought that I would be getting clients from, you know, my family or from my, you know, former coworkers or you know, people I work with or anything like that, but they do care about you. So just tell people, like, just don't do it in a pushy way, but use your networks, I think is a huge thing. I got my first client on Upwork many years ago. It used to be called Freelance, and that ties nicely into the next question about outsourcing. So I actually use Upwork to outsource a lot of work now. That's pretty much the only way that I've actually hired people now that I think about it, just because it's really easy and everything's done for you. You don't have to worry about like all of the financial documents. I mean, you should still keep records, obviously, like if you use an accounting software. I use QuickBooks Self-Employed, so I still keep record of what I use for contract labor so I can give it to my accountant. But you don't have to like worry so much about all of the nitty-gritty details of things, whereas you would if you did it off of a platform like that. And then I do host apprenticeships as well through GenM. I think I've talked about that before. I'm gonna leave a referral code to GenM in the description box. You pay $150 and you get access to an apprentice for 3 months. So they're basically like an intern, and you're just expected to help teach them things, and then they're expected to help you in return. So it's a really cool service, and it's a good way to kind of inch into hiring somebody if you're not sure if you're ready to take that on. Because I think something that a lot of people don't think about is hiring is a lot of work on you too. Like it adds to my plate, even though it helps me in the long run. Like I still have to you know, train them and like help them and meet with them and all that stuff. So it's a good way to test that out. Long answer, sorry. How do you price and structure the services you offer? Also did a couple of videos and podcasts on this, so I'll leave stuff in the description box. But just kind of in a nutshell, you know, think about what you want to make or what you need to make to survive. You know, that's number one. Number two, think about the value that you're offering. Are you highly experienced or are you just starting out? I don't know. I see a lot of tips and advice on freelancing websites and podcasts and stuff like that. And it's like, take the rate that you have in your head and double it. And I think that's good general advice. But at the same time, I'm not going to say that to you if you've never done social media for anyone. You know, you have no experience either in corporate, in freelance, nothing. Like I'm not going to tell you that, because no, you should be starting at the bottom. Like that's kind of how it works. You have to get experience before you can raise your rates. So think about those things, and then also take a tiny peek at the competition. And I say a tiny peek because I don't want you to price your services just based on what the competition is doing, but you should have a little bit of insight into what they are doing, so you're not charging, you know, super overcharging or super undercharging either, because both look bad, and obviously undercharging hurts you a lot, but overcharging can hurt you too, because if you're charging a lot for something, people are expecting a lot, you know, a lot in return, and if you don't deliver, that looks bad on you. So those are kind of like the three main things that I keep in mind. As far as structuring my services, I mean, I really just think about what I like to do, what I'm good at, and what I can do, like what I have time for, you know. Like I would love to be able to say, oh, I'll do like I love events, for example. I've put on events for companies, clients, and things like that before. flown out to New York to do events, flown out to LA to do events. I love doing stuff like that. I would love to do more of that, but I know that with my schedule, I just can't like offer that as a standalone service. Obviously, if I have a client who asks me for it and it, you know, we're a long-term relationship, they're willing to pay, whatever, I'll do it. I'll make time in my schedule, but I'm not going to just like open that up to everybody who's watching. Like, hey, like, you know, that would be my full-time job. So you just have to kind of think about what you're good at, what you like to do, what you have time for, and what's in demand. You know, take a look, just put your feelers out there, Google Trends, things like that to kind of figure out what people are really looking for. I know influencer marketing is a hot term right now. Stuff like that, you know, figure out what people are actually looking for. Look in Facebook groups, figure out what services people are asking for, and see if there's a fit for you. Do Instagram likes mean anything really? And how do you convert likes to follows? So I think that Instagram likes, or likes, vanity metrics of any kind, are an indicator of success. Yes, like, I mean, they're an indicator of how many people are following you that are kind of moved by your content. And I think that they're an indicator of how good your content is, specifically on Instagram. You know, if you take good pictures, pretty pictures, people are going to like them, you know, in general. That's why selfies perform so well, because people see, oh, she looks nice, he looks nice, I'm gonna like it. Like, it's just an instinct. So I do think it's a good indicator of how good your content is. But you're right, like, I don't think it necessarily means anything, because I get likes every day from random people who don't follow me, or random dudes who just think I'm cute, that aren't going to purchase anything from me, that aren't gonna be a client, that aren't learning anything from me. They just think I'm cute. And I block them, by the way. And I also block people who don't have anything. Like, if you have just a black square or black circle as your profile picture and no name or anything, I block them. You're not adding value. Like, you're just inflating my numbers but not adding value to my following. That was kind of a side note, but moral of the story is no, they don't really mean anything. Besides just an indication of like how pretty your pictures are, which is a part of the story. You know, to be successful on any platform, you do have to have good quality content, but that's only a part of the story. How do you convert them to follows? So I think that engagement is really big here. I think a lot of people forget that engagement is key. You know, outbound communication is key on Instagram. Like, you can't just post pretty pictures and wait for things to come. I'm really bad at that. You know, I'm really busy, and Instagram isn't a huge top priority for me. And even on YouTube, I used to comment on people's videos all the time on YouTube, and it's two things. One, I'm just so busy, and two, like, I watch a lot of stuff on my TV now, so I don't have it on my laptop in front of me. And it hurts you. Like, I was growing so much faster when I was commenting on things all the time. So I think that's one way, is just really making a connection with people, genuinely engaging with people, besides just shoving pretty pictures in people's faces. Ask questions, get out there in active hashtags, and don't be spammy, but just, you know, make comments, follow people, you know. I mean, I think that's really the key to growth, honestly. Like, I think a lot of people just post and wait for things to come, and it just doesn't work that way. I'm a freelance virtual assistant, and I've opted to specialize in social media management. Kindly let me know what I need. So that's kind of a big question. I do have a course that's called A Journey Social. It's all about that, like all about what goes into freelance social media management, kind of the business side of things. And yeah, it goes over everything from like how to market yourself online to how to set up a discovery call, what I put in my discovery call, tips for pricing your products and services, all of that stuff. It's $19 right now at the time that I'm recording this in mid-August, and I will link it in the description box below. So I definitely recommend you check that out if you need some help like with getting started. I have gotten a lot of questions about when the relaunch is happening, and I'm so upset with myself because I had planned for it to be done by this time. A lot is going on in my life right now, so stay tuned probably for the next video or the next two videos, and you'll kind of get a lot of where this stuff is coming from in my life. I got some big life changes going on, so I promise you guys that it will be up very, very soon. So they're done. I just need to put it together, and I just haven't had time to, honestly. So yeah, stay tuned. And I thank you guys so much for your patience. Should I niche down for social media management? Yes, that's actually wow, I just talked really weird. That's actually something that I'm working on quite a bit myself right now, because I feel like I'm in a place where I'm getting so much work, so much business, but it's like I'm trying to get the right kind of business. I'm trying to get the types of businesses that I can truly, truly help, and that they really appreciate me and value me and understand where I'm coming from and all of that. So yes, I think niching down is a huge, important part of business. I think it comes with time. You know, I don't think that you can necessarily say, oh, I'm this type of social media manager from day one, because I also think you need to experience different things. You know, I've worked in tech, I've worked with, you know, startups, I've worked in, obviously in the corporate world, ton of experience in the corporate world. I've worked in, you know, small business, medium business, personal brands, you know, young companies, old companies. Like I've done kind of a lot of things, and it's cool. Nonprofits. It's cool because I can kind of see what I do and do not like. And I think sometimes you have to experience all those things to understand that. But I think now I'm at the point many years into business where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to focus on like one key thing. And I'm still trying to figure out what that is, honestly. Do you have any advice as a woman freelancer for earning what you deserve? I think, you know, pay inequality happens everywhere. Like, I mean, it's just a fact of life. I was actually just reading an article about it for freelancers. I'll see if I can find it and link down below. But yeah, of course it happens. I feel very lucky in my career, just my career in general, freelance, not freelance, whatever. I feel very lucky. I feel like I've had many angels in my life who've looked out for me, to be honest with you. And a lot of luck in that. I don't really feel that I've been shortchanged personally. But my personal experience, I know the numbers, I see the stats, I know that my personal experience is kind of a rare one. So I don't know that I have much advice. I mean, although I don't feel like I've been shortchanged financially from being a freelancer, I definitely do feel like I've been treated less than from certain clients. And I think that also has had to do with race. I think it's also had to do with my perceived age. You know, I think a lot of people think I'm like 20, 22, 23, and I'm not. Not that that should let somebody treat you badly, but I do think that, you know, when somebody hires a freelancer that they think is fresh out of college, they do think that they can pay them a certain amount. They do think that they can kind of just boss them around and tell them what to do, versus somebody who's more experienced and who's closer to 30 than they're 20, and it's this whole thing. So yes, I mean, inequality exists. Of course, I'd be remiss to you know, not admit that. I guess my only advice for that is I haven't stayed in those places. You know what I mean? Like, don't tolerate it. If you wouldn't tolerate it at a job, like if it's something that you would go to HR for at a job, don't take it as a freelancer. You know, that's the thing, is like freelancers don't have those protections. You know, if somebody treats you badly because you're young or because you're a different race than them or because, you know, you're a woman or whatever in a corporate job, you go to HR or you go to your boss. You know, you don't just sit there and take it. So as a freelancer, we don't have that luxury. So you just have to go with your gut. And if you feel like it's not going to change, if you feel like it's something that can't be remedied, you leave. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not a comfortable thing for me to even talk about, but it's reality. So I guess just go with your gut. I wish I had better advice on that, honestly. How was the beginning of social media marketing and your barriers? I mean, beginning of social media was just like totally different when I started. It was a lot less challenging, to be honest. Like there wasn't such a huge pressure to prove your value all the time. There wasn't so much competition, but it was also more boring, you know, like there wasn't like fun, cool things that you could do. We didn't have these like freaking computers in our hands. Like we can do so many things just with our phones now, so it's pretty cool. Barriers. I guess barriers then, like when I first started, were just getting clients in the first place, and also just the technical skills. Like I was still very green. I knew that I wanted to work in social media. I knew that I liked it for myself, but I didn't know how to run a Facebook ad. I didn't know how to design things. I didn't know how to, you know, report and prove ROI and things like that. And I didn't have the traditional business experience either, so I couldn't really speak their language. Like now, especially working in corporate for so long, I understand like certain terms and things where I can connect with business owners and even educate them and be more of a consultant, versus like when I first started, I felt like I was very much just there to perform a service, if that makes sense. I don't really know what this question is asking, if they want to know my barriers now, but I think my barriers now, I guess going back to that niching down thing, I think that's one thing that I'm really trying to focus on, is just getting the right types of clients, and just client workflow is always improving, like communication is always improving, and just balancing everything. I feel like like I said, I mean, I have gotten so much business lately and I can't do it all, you know? So I do have to be very picky with what I take. So yeah, I think those are my barriers right now. Have you had any experience with B2B social media management? Yes, mostly at my corporate jobs though. I don't really take too many B2B clients. Like I don't take any that are strictly B2B really. I guess like to answer the question though, I think I spend a lot more paid on B2B just because they're a harder audience to reach organically. So like, paid advertising, and then LinkedIn is a huge place. I think a lot of people forget about LinkedIn as a social media platform when they think about getting into social media management, and it's huge. LinkedIn is amazing. I love LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn as Facebook. Like I don't really scroll my Facebook feed anymore. I scroll my LinkedIn feed. And that's because, I'm business minded, and so I'm not the only one who does that. So don't forget about that as a social network, I guess is my advice there. How did you grow your social media business in the first 3 months? So this question is a little hard for me to answer because I didn't like set out to start a business. I didn't set out to really do this long term even necessarily. I mean, I started freelancing when I was in college. So many people are probably sick of hearing this story, but yeah, I freelanced when I was in college is the long story short. And I really just did it because I needed money and because I needed experience. I thought my dream was to work, just get an in-house social media job, which I did, which I love doing, but freelancing followed me when I worked in corporate, when I didn't work in corporate, when I, whatever, like it followed me, and it was just something that I realized I can do both. So it was kind of like an on and off, not an on and off thing. It was pretty much always on, but I never looked at it as a long-term goal. So I never really set out for growth. So it was just very long-term, steady growth. I guess if I were to start over again, like let's just say if I were, to be somebody who was just quitting a job and looking to just go hard and do this full time, or if I were, I don't know, somebody just graduating college looking to just do this full time, whatever. I guess in my first 3 months, I would probably just really focus on growth. I mean, I don't know, client acquisition, that's like the main thing. You gotta have clients. So just outreach to clients, setting up calls, setting up coffees, talking to people that you know. I recommend that if you are in one of those situations, you start taking clients now too. Like don't just like wait until you graduate college to start because you're starting fresh. Take a client or two while you're in college. And if you can't handle taking a client or two while you're in college or while you still have a day job or whatever the case, you're not gonna be able to handle freelancing because you're gonna be working more than 40 hours a week freelancing. Like that's just the truth, at least in the beginning, and I think that's just kind of the truth. So if you can't handle both, you probably won't be able to handle a business in the first place. So take at least a couple of clients while you're still in whatever situation you're trying to get out of or whatever the case is, to kind of ease your way into it. And then once you're fully doing this full time or, part-time, whatever your situation is, just go hard on acquisition, acquiring people, and setting up systems. You can also start setting up your systems before you have clients too. So like developing your workflow, developing how you're gonna set up your discovery calls, how you're gonna give people your welcome packets, what surveys you need from them, paperwork, all of that stuff. And again, a lot of that is covered in a Journey Social, and whatever isn't covered in a Journey Social is coming in the update. So yeah, my course will probably help you out with that a bit as well. Okay, I think this is the last question. Let's see, yes. How did you go about outsourcing for the first time? Contract, W-2, taxes, question mark, exclamation point. Thought that was funny how she wrote that. I think I talked about it already. Upwork is pretty much where I do that stuff. You want to talk to your accountant to figure out exactly what they need. You should be collecting, if you're doing it just yourself, you should be collecting tax forms from them. I believe it's called a W-9, I want to say, and then you would issue a 1099 at the end of the year. I thought my camera just stopped recording. You would issue them a 1099 for their taxes. I believe it's called a W-9, but don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert, but you can talk to an accountant about this. My accountant told me what I need, and I have it in my notes somewhere. But yeah, talk to them. They'll be able to help you out. I'm not an expert. You guys, I love when you guys ask questions, but I do just always have to say, like, I'm never going to give you a black or white answer for like financial, tax, all that stuff, because I don't know, and everything's different in every state, and I don't want to give you bad information. That's not my specialty. So really all I can do is give you my experience. So yeah, talk to an accountant about that, or even just like Google. I'm sure like there's lots of like lawyers and accountants who have blogs and things like that that will help you with that a little better. But yeah, something like Upwork, they take care of a lot of that stuff for you. Like they take care of the tax stuff for you. You still have to report it on your taxes, but like they'll take care of like the documentation and everything. So that might be a good place to start if you are looking to outsource and just kind of dip your toes in. So yeah, as always, I hope this video was helpful. Please make sure to leave me a thumbs up if it was. Comment down below if you guys have any additional questions for me to answer in a future video. And yeah, make sure to follow me on Instagram as well. I do, ask questions, like let you guys know when I'm taking questions, update you guys, things like that on there. Yada, yada, yada. You know the drill. And yeah, stay tuned for my channel for upcoming videos because I have some updates coming in the next video or so. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in a new video very soon. Bye.